The text I will present this week is called The Bridge from Research to Practice. It's been written by Christopher Monton and Michael Loeb from the Center for Applied Linguistics. This is a center operated by the University of California in Santa Cruz in collaboration with Washington, D.C. It's been in collaboration with a number of institutions nationwide. This center has been founded to assist the nation's diverse students from different profiles and who were at risk of educational failure. So they might not be able to go over the benchmarks for their grade level, depending on different risks. And the idea is just make sure they can achieve academic excellence. So on the left side, I put a picture of one of the rooms in the University of California. And on the right side, I put a little text who celebrates the 60th anniversary of this center. So it's not a new institution. It just gives an idea about the interest this center had for many years, just to make sure everybody is going over the challenges of our societies, especially for the American one. So the title is Implementing Two-Way Immersion Programs in Secondary School. So if we go back to Donna Christian's definition about immersion, two-way immersion, it said you have two status of languages, a minority and majority. And for example, Spanish and English, or Korean and English, or French and English. And the idea for two-way immersion program is typically students spend the morning receiving instruction from the curriculum through one language, the minority or majority language, and the afternoon through the other language. The idea is getting the integration of students from two language background and brings them the advantages of each language and of the second language for each student for the learning and teaching part. So why did I put two pictures like this? So one, depending on the definition, the picture on the left is for me the two-way immersion for the language, going back and forth from one language to another language. So as I said, English to Spanish, Spanish to English, with instruction in teaching and learning. And for the other picture on the right, it's much more the challenge we are facing, and we can just see with this text, is a two-way immersion program with the implementation and the successful implementation in elementary school. And now we need to go up to the upper levels in middle school and high schools. So we'll see with these two arrows, the idea is just putting the students up in an upper level with this kind of two-way program immersion. In the same way, maybe just putting down some teachers from high school and middle school and see how it was implemented in elementary school. So the idea is just going vertically and horizontally to say we have a two-way immersion with language and with now implementation of these programs at different levels. So these two-way immersion programs, just a reminder of the definition I just gave you from Donna Christian. It's about typically giving the chance to the students to spend half of the time or more than half of the time depending of the model, 90-10 or 50-50, or different kind of programs with 3 languages, depends. But giving the chance to the students to spend time in their native language and time in the secondary language or the target language to learn and to have the same opportunity to master and to achieve their grade level and develop their culture and the others' cultures. That's part of the definition of the two-way immersion program. And what are the reasons of the popularity of these programs in elementary? Studies show that this two-way immersion program, and one-way immersion program or foreign language program, as described by Donna Christian under the education umbrella education. That's part of the program. We just give the best scores, the best results from the students in any disciplines, any content for any test. So it's like it's been very successful in elementary, so that became very popular. So now the idea is just can they go forward and just implement these kind of immersion programs in a secondary level. So far, few programs are setting up in secondary level. Why? Because it's new. Two immersion program have seen their first cohorts growing up and going to middle school and high school, and few districts trying it so far to implement the program in secondary level. So we'll see why, and we'll see what happened in this district who implemented it. So the reason why there was a small number of secondary two-way immersion, it's because it's a recent phenomenon. As I told you, the dual language or immersion education is developing first in elementary school, and time for the cohorts to grow up and go to middle school, some years have been necessary to go over it. So it's now a recent phenomenon in secondary. It's time now to think and see how it can be implemented. So it's quite complicated because factors are quite different from elementary to secondary, and we'll see how it's different and why it is that so complicated to go over it. Of course, elementary two-way immersion programs continue to proliferate through the USA, but as it's recent in secondary, the number of successfully implemented secondary programs remains small. That's why many districts with two-way immersion cohorts that are reaching the upper elementary grades must now make complex decisions with complicated implementation about two questions: whether to extend their program, yes or no, and how to extend these programs. How to extend this program from elementary to secondary, and is that worthy to go in elementary and implement the same program in secondary, into middle school and high school. So we'll see for this report from Monton and Michael Loeb, how they just took a lot of information with telephone interviews and we'll see how they just went over different information and provide preliminary sense of the challenge or key challenges confronting two-way immersion programs above elementary level, along with some experience-based option for meeting these challenges. Of course, we'll see a lot of issues and it's going to be addressed in this report. So we'll see which kind of challenges. So we have challenges and option for meeting these challenges. So on the left part of the screen, you can see nice pictures with obstacles. When you go from start elementary and you see maybe just a short way already done, but you have a big obstacle to go further and get bilingual citizen, open-minded citizen, and just make sure student will just go over the identity and succeed in their life and their professional life, personal life, through the programs that it's been intended to create or to extend from one level to another level. So that's not an easy reflection. And on the right part, you can see a lot of questions, a lot of options are available, can be addressed to make sure some two-way immersion program can be born in secondary level. So we'll see what kind of information do we need to make sure the implementation will be successful. So at least I noted two challenges. First, avoid interferences with core courses. So that's one of the challenges we cannot see in elementary school. And the same, quality bilingual teachers may be needed in secondary and not in elementary. So the two main challenges I noticed in this text are these ones. Of course, in elementary, the same teacher can teach 4, 5, even 6 different contents. By example, I'm teaching math, science, social studies, French, literacy, culture, literature in French for 6 years old kids. In secondary, one teacher cannot teach all these subjects. So that's part of the challenge we can encounter in secondary. Second part, as you can hear me, I'm not a perfect bilingual teacher. I'm very good in French, so I can have a very good quality in speaking French, listening French, writing and reading French. But teaching in English for me would be very hard. In secondary, one of the challenges would be to hire quality bilingual teachers to teach in two ways immersion, like for Spanish and English, the same subject during the same course. So that's part of the challenges we can see for secondary. So I just put 3 things to keep in mind in secondary for two-way immersion. So first, maybe we can just add this report from Monton and Loeb, from Christopher Monton and Michael Loeb, are self-reported, which means it's been done by coordinators who implemented two-way immersion programs in their schools with their own data, with their own parameters, with their own factors, with their own cohorts of students. So data are not totally standardized. That's part of the report and telephone interviews were conducted for this project. And second part, you can get anecdotal information depending of the kind of district, the kind of school, the kind of building, the kind of staff, the kind of curriculum, so the kind of students. All these things were just very different from one building to another building, to one district from another district, from one middle school to another middle school. So the diversity is totally different. The implementation might be different. A lot of things might be different. So it's very hard to get a real sense in all this information. So what we can say is like the growth and the expansion of elementary two-way programs lead almost automatically to think, do we need to get two-way immersion programs in secondary schools? Second point, there is an increasing interest in implementation to implement this kind of program for secondary programs. If it works in elementary, why not asking and thinking having the same kind of programs in secondary to help? And always, like we said for the center, always assist students to achieve academic excellence or achieve academics benchmarks for their grade level and success. So far, few secondary two-way immersion programs are in operation, so there is no existing research based on their effectiveness. Can we say it's effective? Can we say it's not? Can we say it was well implemented? Can we say we can go deeper and get better quality in the implementation? So there is not enough two-way immersion in secondary in operation to go over that. So let's think about advices and keys we can find in this report. Whatever we can say, and the studies shows from Donna, Christian, from Genesi, from different authors, research, we have benefits in two-way immersion in education programs. We have whatever we can say, we have benefits in data, we have benefits for the students who are just succeeding very well in elementary. So we can find additional benefits in secondary. So that's a kind of victory, so that's why I put great benefits, yeah, and additional benefits for secondary. That's the follow-up of what's going on in elementary. So the report says we have benefits in elementary and benefits in secondary. So the benefits in elementary are develop bilingualism and biculturalism, develop cross-cultural attitudes, respect and identities of each culture, of each group, each for the majority and for the minority of students, develop the cognitive flexibility, going back and forth from one language to another language, develop the different way to express oneself, develop the potential to speak a second language and one's native language, and of course being efficient model for language 1 and language 2 mean, so we go back to the first benefit with just going over bilingualism and biculturalism. The idea is just being as efficient as native speakers in L2 and minority speakers in L1. We have as well benefits for secondary because it's the continuation of the development of the language, target language. So it means we can go deeper and further with the language, with the new language, with the target language. We can evolve toward advanced language in high school, which means going over a kind of program, a kind of test with the International Baccalaureate, the IB. So students can go over an international test with a high level in language 2, language target. Why not going over the preparation of language 3 and language 4 if we have Korean students who are learning Spanish, English, and they have their native language Korean? That's one example. And it gives college credits. So it's like in our program in Utah, for students who are following immersion program, French immersion program, and if they follow the program until the university, they can get college credits for that. So that's an important benefit we can think about. So implementing two-way immersion in secondary, in middle school and high school, gives us at least 9 challenges, which are planning the program, language distribution, 50-50, 90-10, how it's going to be distributed, curriculum and materials, student participation and motivation, attrition and late entries, student scheduling, teams, clusters and houses, staffing, transportation, and parent involvement. So these are 9 points, 9 keys staff or people who want to implement this program in secondary need to think about, make sure everything will be well thought to make this program kind of successful for the students, for the parents, and for the school. So first point is planning the program. So in this report, each time we're going to have advices and ideas. So it's like if we need to plan the program, we're going to need to think about 4 points in this, 4 ideas to follow. So if you want to plan the program, you need to include not only teachers, but all the community, teachers, parents, students, counselors, administrators, and conduct a parent survey just to make sure parents will be okay with this program, and they will just be very confident into this program for the success of their kid, of the students. So it's always good to bring experts in education, bilingual education, immersion education, to focus on the main points. So, and the 4th point is going to be to discuss and set goals and objectives. So what are going to be the goals for the students, what are going to be the goals for the parents, and what kind of goals, what kind of objectives. So everyone needs to be aware about the expectations. The second point is language distribution, curriculum and material. The main point, would be the main point for the teachers and for the students. So the advices and ideas are 2 mandatory classes in target language. So means maybe having mechanic and art or music in L2. But the idea is just finding which of these 2 classes will be in the target language. Other point is maintaining a continuity in language allocation from year to year. So which means if we start a subject or a content in one language, maybe we should keep the same language, same target language to teach the content, not changing every other years. And to pick the target language for the subject, we should think about the target language books available, which means if we have some books in Spanish on world culture. I don't know. World culture. Okay, so maybe it's gonna be a good point to go through this direction with L2. If it's not available, maybe teacher would be very busy to create this material. And the fourth point in the language distribution is like having bilingual teacher and hiring bilingual teacher is very important to make sure the program is going to be taught with quality and whatever the subject picked. Third point would be motivation and participation of the students. We need to have motivated and students who want to participate. So the advices from the report and the ideas brought up from these telephone interviews are getting open buildings for students just to make them happy to come to school, having a lot of communication with parents and with outside of the school, avoid isolation, which means why having only the two immersion students just gathering together from elementary to secondary. So maybe we should cut that idea and just mix them with non-two-way immersion students. Another point is just the fourth point is just work and socialize together, and the fifth point is foster spotlights for two-way immersion students and spotlight the program too. So it's like the program and the students should be seen like real students and not only needed students. So it's like the idea is just headlighting, emphasize the work of the students and the quality of the program. The next point is attrition and late entries. If you don't want to have students drop the program, just keep students motivated and avoid scheduling conflicts, which means if students have electives, they should be able to pick their electives and pick the two-way immersion program too. So it's like if they want to get one option, they cannot just say, I cannot get the option if I am in two-way immersion. So we should avoid the conflict and set specific criteria for the late entries. Student scheduling is the next point. So make sure two-way immersion courses do not compete with each other. I talked about this before in the previous point. Include counseling staff just to make sure the schedule will be done correctly, and commit students to an extended day program. So if some courses have to be scheduled at the end of the day, maybe should ask to the students to be more committed in that point. Next point is teams, clusters, house. Advices and ideas are in 2 points. Okay, we have advantages and disadvantages. So if we put all the two-way immersion students together, we have advantages. So the team is strengthened, so it's stronger. All teacher in the team will be dedicated to the need of the two-way students, two-way immersion students. That means we have a more powerful teachers team for the kids and for the students, and maybe we will have more interdisciplinarity in the lesson planning. However, some disadvantages will be uh, here. Okay, so students or teacher will be separated from the rest of the school, so we're gonna find the isolation. So that's not the point we are looking for. Some block scheduling becomes difficult, if not impossible, and students don't meet as many non-two-way immersion students, so it's like isolation again. But if we put the combination of two-way immersion students with non-two-way immersion team, at this time we have still advantages and more, and less disadvantages. So for the advantages, students are mixed, which keep them motivated to participate in the program. They are not isolated. There is more friendship, more relationships they can create. Non two-way immersion teachers have more of an incentive to be involved in the program and may feel a part of it over time. So it's like we don't have two-way teachers for two-way students, non-two-way teachers for non-two-way immersion students, but it's like we can cross over student and student, so it's like everybody is feeling part of the program. So it might be a very good advantage. And if it's the case, students feel like they're all part of the same school, not isolated again. And if we put two-way immersion and non-two-way immersion students together with this combination, teachers can just teach one subject and not multiple subjects. So we don't need to get a lot of bilingual teachers and with a very high quality teachers. We can just hire monolingual teachers. They can teach in Spanish and the other teachers will speak in English. We can use more teachers and just look how we can schedule the blocks. But in the other hand, one of the disadvantages would be harder to create interdisciplinarity for the teachers in their lesson plan. The next point is the staffing. So in this report, they are talking about advice and ideas. So the idea is bring secondary staff in elementary level program. So that's what I say when I put the picture with two arrows going up and down. So it's like teacher from secondary should see how it was working in elementary and just take some ideas and just try to implement them in secondary. So it's like they don't have to create everything and just adapt to their challenges, to their factors and parameters. We can as well just put and use this up arrow by transferring elementary teachers in secondary. So they're gonna use, we can use their quality and their faculty to teach in a two-way immersion program and just go and adapt already with what they already did before in elementary. Or they can just hire part-time teachers. So it's like you can use a lot of teachers to go over different specificities. Okay, 8 points. Point 8, the transportation. In each district, you have always more elementary schools than secondary schools, which means you have more distance to go to school when you're in middle school or when you're in high school, even worse when you're in high school. So you depend on transportation. So the two-way programs cannot be set up in all middle schools or in all high schools. So some poll to parents have to be done to ask for their preferences for a site. What would be the more convenient? In the same way, when the site has been approved, we need now to obtain the district commitment to get buses and to get all the students who need to enter in this program to be able to be transported to be led to the high school and to the middle school. So it's like if you pick a site who 50% or 60% of the students cannot go to the site with transportation and they cannot be led by their parents at this time, it's very disincentive. And the program won't be very successful with no students. And the last point, at least for this report, is about parent involvement. So advices and ideas are obtained support from and consult with parents, which means parents are part of the team, parents are part of the community, and parents have a voice. So that's very important to get parents involved, because if parents are involved, they're gonna push more their, their kid to be motivated or to go into this program. Uh, Two immersion parents night every year should be done, just to give a lot of information to parents and just have parents from the previous year to give practical information to the other parents, but have a good network of parents who know how the program is working and how successful it can be, and how uh, important it is for the success of the students who are following this program. And the third point is offering language classes for L1 and L2 parents who can mix parents and create relationships with parents from native English speakers to another language uh, speakers, Spanish or Asian language. So for the conclusion of this text from Monton and Love, so called Implementing Two-Way Immersion Programs in Secondary School. So we can say, after some examples, there is no one way to implement a secondary two-way immersion. There is many ways to implement it, and there are multiple variations, but everything can work, everything might work. So just think about how it can be successful depending of the students, depending of the geography, depending of the building, depending of the staff, depending of the choices done for the curriculum, for the transportation, for the commitment of each other. Um, so there were many attempts to start in secondary with more or less success. So the idea is just going further and just go over the ideas and advices to make it work. Of course, there are similarities across programs, differences across implementation, but the same goal for everybody is just to lean towards bilingualism, biculturalism, and success for the students. Advices would be for everybody the same: be patient, plan in advance, hire good teachers, and buy in, which means everybody should be committed in this implementation, and it cannot be one day from the other day. It has to be thought years in advance. The research is a complete open area, so it's completely new. So many other information will be taken within few years with more and more programs implemented, hopefully just following these ideas and advices from this report. And we will follow recommendations to continue at the secondary level. So it's like recommendations are very important to follow to make sure we can continue, or everybody can continue to enjoy a very successful program, which is the two-way immersion program. So let's implement the two-way immersion program in secondary school and have the research tell us how successful it can be or it will be in the next years.